Hey folks, BeirBones here. Now with update 18.3 we have a lot of new changes in Warframe. The one I was most excited for was the mag rework, which is my favourite frame. You'll probably get to know that soon enough. Which essentially swapped out one ability and tweaked a few others so that mag wasn't just a corpus killer. We also got a new Tenno gen skin for mag called the Alata skin, which is really nice by the way. I actually really like it. In the footage you'll see I'm using it on her body, but I don't have the head on because I'm still using the arcane coil helmet for the range buff at the time. Now with the new rework, pool stayed exactly the same but now does double the damage if an enemy is affected by magnetize. As well as enemies killed by pool have a 25% chance to drop an energy orb, which is pretty sweet, but the chances of killing an enemy with pool when an enemy isn't magnetized is pretty slim, especially at higher levels. Magnetize is a new ability which is similar to bullet attractor, which was the number 3 ability for mag, which has now been swapped to number 2. This ability generates a field around the target like bullet attractor. All projectiles, bullets, enemies and polarized shards, which I'll explain in a little bit, are all pulled to the centre of the field. Whilst the shield is up, all the incoming damage is increased by 200%, whilst also dealing 25% of the absorbed damage per second to all enemies in the range of the field. The target dies whilst in the field. It's still active, but at the end of the field duration it will explode, doing 200% damage of the total damage done to the field, which is a lot of damage by the way. The explosion radius is pretty big and the damage is massive. Now this is the key part to the build I'm currently using because I've got a low duration. Magnetize is especially effective with weapons such as the Cyanoid Simular, the Galaxian and the Lanka. I've seen a few people using the Tonka and the Penta at good effect with it as well. What I've noticed about Magnetize so far is that it can be kinda buggy. You know, I've seen certain projectiles not being pulled into the field or even being shot like miles away from it. You'll see in a little bit of footage that I've got later on. I think it's like some sort of glitch, but sometimes it'll pull bullets in from outside the actual radius of the magnetize as well for some reason. I'm really not sure why it's working like that. Hopefully it gets sorted soon enough. We'll just see, and maybe it's intended, I don't know. Polarize, which was previously named Shield Polarize, is essentially very similar but has a few vital changes which make Magna very good against any faction type, not just Corpus. The Polarize now works like Nova's Molecular Prime and that is cast outwards in a wave and is not instant like it previously was. The ability still damages enemy shields but now also does the same for armor. The damage is then multiplied and stored as shards on the ground, which can then be pulled in by Magnetize, which I kind of explained a little bit earlier, and which increases the damage it does. Enemy shields will explode while armor does not and will just do damage to the enemy. The explosion from enemy shield does blast damage to enemies within the explosion radius of Polarize, which is quite a big radius. Polarize still restores shields to allies as well as the cryopod etc. and like sentinels. Doesn't seem as effective as it was before when dealing with Corpus or the Void enemies, as it does less damage with explosion from shields, and it doesn't scale while still having a travel time, which kind of nerfs it a fair bit. I don't really see how this isn't a nerf. Still very handy to be able to reduce armor on enemies with lots of armor. Here's hoping some of the enemy scaling fixes, which we might get soon, I don't know, will actually make this ability a lot better. You know, the kind of issue is that it doesn't do as much damage to shields now, and the armor scaling kind of falls off like kind of higher end levels. Now Crush is probably the most disappointing part of the rework, was that it's essentially still a pretty shit ability. It still works the same as before but now does extra damage to enemies affected by Magnetize. Not sure if this is the enemy field it's based on or if it's an enemy within the Magnetized shield. Nonetheless, it still feels like a very expensive crowd control, as any decently formatted weapon will do more damage to enemies in Magnetize than this will, and the fact that the pool ability is actually a better CC with a longer range and costs a lot less kind of energy, it just, like, I'm not sure. I don't see the point of it. If I'm wrong, then tell me guys, but I'm not sure about it still. It's still exactly the same, just does more damage, that's all. Now without a doubt, Mag is not a one-trick pony like she was before, which is brilliant for anyone who wants a bit of variety in how they play, because we all know how burnt out you can get playing this game. I still get the feeling that Magnetize is by far her best ability now, especially when used alongside a low duration, as the explosion damage from it is amazing. I'm really happy with it. If the explosion damage wasn't there, I'd be kind of pretty dissatisfied with the whole rework, so I'm kind of glad that's there. Pool is pretty much still the same, you know, it's still a CC and now does more damage to magnetized enemies, which is a boost. What you'll notice that all of our abilities seem to affect Magnetize to cause it to do more damage, that all seem to be kind of centered around it. Polarize is still nice, but it's not as deadly as it was before against Corpus, but then you get the kind of armor reduction, which is pretty good. I can't complain about that. Testing still needs to be done on the actual armor percentages that get taken off from certain level enemies at any given power strength. Crush, I just don't want to talk about it. I think it should have had like some sort of innate kind of armor reduction to enemies, like the fracture and crush augment has. That would make it really like useful for using in like higher end like games with higher end leveled enemies. Like at the moment, it just I don't see the point in using it. You're kind of like up for attack and be outside the crush range because you're kind of stuck in that ability. So yeah, disappointed. All in all, I like the mag rework because I feel like she's a lot more fun to play now and actually has like 3 abilities worth using instead of the 2 that she had before. I like to be able to use all 4, but Crush, yeah, sad. Anyway guys, this is my build for mag. It's obviously going to be changed depending on how you want to play a mag, but I feel Magnetize is the ability I wanted to get the most use from her, so I did this build based around that. Remember, I also have the Arcane Coil helmet on, so that increases my range on all of her abilities by 25%. So as you can see, I've got Corrosive Projection. You could change that out for Energy Siphon if you really want, it depends on if you're on energy or not. I've got Power Drift, Vitality, Primed Flow, Overextended. I've got that 1 from the top, so I've got enough power range and not too little power strength. I didn't want to have too little power strength and, you know, have like a load of range. And I've got Prime Continuity, Fleeting Expertise, Transient Fortitude, Intensify and Shield Transference. So this will be like my Void kind of build that I'll be using, or if I'm like fighting against Corpus or whatever, I'll use this kind of build. And then my Config B, which is pretty much exactly the same, all I've got is a Streamline instead of the Shield Transference. So as I said though, you can change it Cross Projection for an Energy Siphon if you wanted. And just remember, I've also got on the Arcane Coil helmet, which increases the amount of range I've got. But I think it reduces my shields if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think it reduces my shields. So that is my good build, guys. As you know, it's kind of totally up to you how you want to build her. But I think this is probably the build, it's more the build I really enjoy more than anything else, to be honest. It's one of the builds I really enjoy because Magnetize is really good and Shield Polarize is kind of iffy. So that I feel like this build kind of makes Magnetize really enjoyable to use because you can kind of spam it with a higher power efficiency and then just nuke enemies with like AoE weapons, which is really satisfying in Voids. Thank you very much for watching the video, guys. If you did enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. It does help out so much. I do apologise for the sore throat. There's not really much I can do about it. It was kind of a bit bunged up with the flu and stuff, so I've kind of just been trying to deal with it. I thought I'd try and get the video in a kind of timely fashion, but the throat was kind of getting in the way a little bit. If you've got any comments about the video, guys, please, leave them in the comment section. I'll try and get back to you if you've got any. Maybe if you've got any tips, maybe you feel like I've maybe built mag wrong, tell me and I'll kind of try and have a look at it and maybe see if I prefer that build to that one. But I definitely feel like the Magnetized build is the best build to go with so far.